Urgent, precise. It is 3:30 p.m. on May 2, 2011. U.S. forces descend on a fortified compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, just 35 miles from Islamabad. Almost immediately, the mission hits a crisis as a Black Hawk helicopter crashes upon landing. Miraculously, there are no injuries. The SEALs secure the perimeter, and a strict 40-minute operational clock begins. But to understand the weight of these next 40 minutes, we have to look backward to a much darker morning, September 11, 2001. 19 militants associated with Al-Qaeda hijacked commercial airliners, weaponizing the planes as they flew them directly into the World Trade Center towers. The subsequent collapse tore a permanent hole in the New York skyline. Nearly 3,000 people were killed that morning, across New York, a field in Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon. The sheer scale of the devastation forged an uncompromising mandate for justice, triggering the most intensive global manhunt ever recorded. The U.S. placed a $25 million bounty on his head. They led a massive coalition to overthrow the Taliban harboring him in Afghanistan. Yet the architect of the attacks managed to slip away into the shadows. For a decade, he evaded capture. Intelligence indicated he was moving along the rugged border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, occasionally taunting Western intelligence by releasing grainy, videotaped messages from undisclosed locations. The trail remained stubbornly cold until August 2010. CIA analysts finally caught a break, tracking a known courier directly to a high-walled residential compound back in Abbottabad. For 10 years, the world lived with a gaping vacuum of justice. Every failed raid and cold lead compounded the frustration. That long decade of waiting is exactly why the closing window of this 40-minute tactical operation carries such heavy historical weight. We are back in the compound. As SEAL Team 6 breaches the walls, they are moving on months of exhaustive CIA intelligence. Agents had watched this exact house for weeks, while drones photographed every inch of it from the sky. The operators aren't improvising. Starting on April 29th, the team rehearsed this exact sequence in a physical, life-size replica of the compound, memorizing blind corners and doorways before they ever boarded the helicopters. As the operators systematically clear the lower floors, consider who they are hunting. Osama bin Laden was born in Saudi Arabia in 1957, one of over 50 children of a self-made construction billionaire. He grew up in immense wealth and studied business administration at a university in Jeddah. He never knew poverty or desperation. His path toward mass violence was driven entirely by strict ideological radicalization, a choice made from a position of absolute privilege. The pivot point arrived in 1979. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, he viewed the military occupation as a direct assault on Islam itself, compelling him to act. He used his family's deep financial resources and his growing reputation for extreme piety to build a pipeline. He actively recruited and funded thousands of Arab volunteers, funneling them into the Afghan mountains to fight the Soviets. By 1988, he needed a way to track the growing roster of militants. He built a primitive computer database, linking individual volunteer fighters to a central hub, Al-Qaeda. By expanding these connections globally, he established a highly organized, borderless network of terror. 9 minutes into the raid, it is exactly 3:39 p.m. The SEALs reach the 3rd floor. Osama bin Laden is located. He is shot in the head above the left eye. To understand the inevitability of this bullet, trace his escalation. In 1990, he was enraged when Saudi Arabia invited U.S. troops onto its soil. 3 years later, following the first bombing of the World Trade Center, his radicalism reached a point where his home country stripped him of his citizenship. In 1996, he officially declared a holy war against the United States. He ordered the 1998 truck bombings of U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing over 200 people. 2 years later, his operatives blew a massive hole into the side of the USS Cole in Yemen, killing 17 sailors. He had systematically engineered a long, accelerating campaign of global violence. That lethal resume made him America's ultimate target, driving the military and intelligence apparatus straight to that 3rd-floor bedroom. Once the target is down, the team moves his body to the 1st floor and secures it in a body bag. Back in Washington at 3:53 p.m., President Obama receives preliminary word that bin Laden has been identified and killed. Between 3:39 and 4:10 p.m., the team conducted an exhaustive intelligence sweep of the compound. They secured 5 computers, 10 hard drives, 100 storage devices, and his handwritten personal journals. They prepare for immediate exfiltration. At 4:08 p.m., the operators rig the crashed Black Hawk with explosives and destroy it to protect classified stealth technology. 2 minutes later, a backup helicopter lifts the remaining team members into the night sky. That staggering haul of digital and written records was the operation's true strategic victory. It completely shattered the myth that bin Laden was an untouchable phantom. As intelligence officials noted, knocking down the tallest tree in the forest shook the entire network, exposing the hidden internal workings of Al-Qaeda. The physical remains were taken aboard the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson for strict DNA identification. To ensure his grave would never become a physical monument for future extremists, his body was buried at sea. Yet the removal of the architect could not erase his blueprints. His decades of influence left deep, tragic scars across the region, triggering a severe rise in extremism and a cascade of violence that claimed countless lives throughout the Muslim world. The geopolitical fallout dragged on for another decade. In 2021, exactly 20 years after the towers fell, U.S. President Joe Biden formally announced the total withdrawal of American troops, finally ending the nation's longest war in Afghanistan. A precise 40-minute raid was enough to dismantle the man who started it all. But with the military out and the looming threat of a rejuvenated Taliban retaking control, global security agencies are left with a single, unyielding mandate: we cannot afford another 9/11.